Today, my guest is Daniel Foch.
I would expect people in Niagara to know how to pronounce
I
it.
didn't know you were a realtor.
This
I
is
thought
funny.
you were a mortgage broker.
The ones who wrote the official plans or the secondary plans don't even really know.
Anything controversial.
Right. If you wanted to measure which markets are going to see the most severe excess demand in the fullness of time, you would say
There's no escaping it in Canada.
people have resolved that bad weather is like a very low cost to pay for a good quality of life.
Nobody's really moving up North Ontario.
They increased their international student admission by like 6,000%. I mean, it's like
What?
the only forecasting that I really say is that I think our homeownership rate's going to decline. That's it.
From wine country to cottage country, real estate is all about lifestyle. I'm Andrew Perry, and welcome to That Fine. Welcome back to another episode of That Fine Life podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Perry. This is a podcast where we interview salespeople, entrepreneurs, business owners, and we try to find out what it takes to live that fine life. Today, my guest is Daniel Foch. Did I say that right?
You did, yeah. One of the few.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
I mean, we practiced a little.
I mean, we're
practiced.
here in Niagara region, and I would expect people in Niagara to know how to pronounce it because it's a wine grape that's grown out here.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is.
Holy smokes. Is it Irish?
No, it's French.
French. I'm sorry, French. That's
It's all
what I
good,
meant to say, French. Because I looked it up. I try to figure out how the spelling of somebody's name before, I meet a person and, you and I were on a panel with Aria.
Yeah,
And I'm like, fuck, I should have recorded that.
it's all good.
But so French.
Yeah, with that, like the main road, the most expensive real estate in the world on Rue Foch in Paris.
Really?
Yeah.
So is that mom, dad, both?
Yeah, long story. So my OP, so my dad's dad was he was in Romania during the fall of communism and like Romani genocide during World War II and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And came to Canada at that, I guess, after World War II. So and I guess his father was French, so emigrated from France to Romania. So don't know if there's a family tree tied to the guy the famous guy whose last name is Foch, but I don't know.
You never
I like
know.
to pretend. I mean, it's not a common name, so I'm sure somewhere.
That's right.
Like maybe a cousin
That's
or something
right.
like that. Yeah.
Well, because we're technically not married, but what the hell's the point? After I tell you the story, you'll agree. My wife's last name is Perry, Perri. She's Italian.
Huh.
And my dad's from Dundee, Scotland, and I'm Perrie. So it's like everybody always jokes about the Calabres, and everybody's got the same last name. So anyways, but you know what's interesting, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this. Maybe I'm just an idiot, but until Aria, I didn't know you were a realtor. I thought you were a mortgage broker.
Yeah, this is funny. So Adam, my broker of record, I guess office manager, Ryan's the broker of record, but at Rare, he made me run a
Adam
poll.
Stern.
Yeah, Adam Stern. So he made me run a poll because he was like, I think most people don't know that you're a realtor. So I did, and and it was like 60% of people knew, but I hadn't really put any thought into that. And so I am a realtor. I'm not a very good one, to be honest with you. No, I do well representing clients on the investment side. I'm not really a customer service guy. I'm more of a results guy.
Yeah.
And so clients who can have quantifiable results, not qualitative results.
Right, but as you were saying on the panel, though, it's like a lot of your focus is, developers, investors kind of as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the challenge is like, I mean, once rates went up, they kind of fell off. So two things happened, and this is why I started really like making content to educate the consumers. During COVID, investors stopped buying because they were competing with end users, and end users were the ones like moving out of cities and overpaying for everything, right?
That's right.
And so investments weren't really viable based on price at that point. Then prices came down, but prices came down because rates went up, and so they're still not really viable. So, I made a great living doing investment only before the pandemic, and then it's just been kind of a mixed bag since then.
Yeah.
Right?
And you were saying your folks were in real estate?
Yeah. So my mom's traded residential since I was born, and my dad has traded commercial since I was born. So
wow.
So I kind of I learned a lot from them, obviously, but also just would like pick up the slack on transactions for a long time. I don't work with them anymore directly, but for a long time just got like training from them and tried to play the middle ground of they'd go away on vacation, semi-retired, whatever. So
step in.
try and take over their deals.
Cool, man.
Yeah, it was
So
nice.
aside from the creating content side,
Mm-hmm.
is maybe the fact that you have a passion for helping developers and investors kind of because you were saying that you have an analysis that you
Yeah.
work with that helps you package these deals. So is that kind of what led you to create the content that you create?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think it's just changed the way that I've looked at deals. And I started like you remember IGTV, like on Instagram?
Yeah.
I used to do like IGTV, like long form videos, just like analyzing the market and where there were like unique opportunities for investors. I was in like a small town north of Toronto that was probably like one of the only investable markets in the GTA left, Keswick, Ontario, other than like Keswick, Oshawa. There's like a couple of other small markets where you could still buy a cash flowing single family or duplex. And so I would just analyze like, okay, what's the best deal in this market at any given time? And I was getting a lot of like referral clients from people in Toronto who thought Keswick was like 4 hours away, right? Like they think that Toronto ends at like the 401 and then it's Muskoka.
Right.
So I was getting a lot of referral clients, and then I was just getting a lot of like inbound from that. And honestly, what led to that was I was working with developers who wanted to assemble land in the secondary plan in Keswick. Well, and not just Keswick, and a lot of places in the GTA. And so I was like, well, most of these properties that they're looking at are like small single family residential on major arterial roads where like the seller is just like a typical residential client.
Yep.
So, they're not going to respond well to like a big commercial broker from the city. And they don't want to live on a main road anymore. So there was an element of like that more qualitative service.
Yeah.
But what would happen is you'd get an end user who could usually pay more for those, or sorry, not an end user, an individual like mom and pop investor who could pay more than a developer could because they were using residential debt to do it. So they were buying it like a residential investment, like like a duplex or whatever, and buying it with a big six bank. Whereas a developer, if you're doing a land assembly, you're usually using commercial debt, prime plus whatever, land debt. So I really became an expert in that type of property. Like I think on any like single family residential house that had investment and future development potential in my markets, I was like the only one selling them for a period of time. Like I knew every owner by name. I knew what price they wanted, I knew all of the people who were looking for those types of properties at any given time. And that all came from like, it was just happenstance that I think that product type was one cycle away from like one owner away from actually being developed. Like developers were somewhat the buyer, the ones who were land banking it. Yeah. But probably the more likely scenario was somebody was buying it to rent it out for 5 years and then flip it to a developer after that first mortgage term. So, cause it was still a little bit premature. Yeah. So the developers really taught me like how to identify value and then and how to communicate. Kind of
my next question is like, is that just something that most people have the potential or the ability to find out, but just for your average agent isn't really going to go and do that type of digging?
I don't know. Like I don't want to make it like I don't want to be like rude and say it's like really simple. Like but I think it is. Like it's not. Right. It's not rocket science, and to be honest with you, like nobody actually knows the answer. Like even the planners.
That's right. I know that all too well.
Like nobody. No disrespect to like the planners at these municipalities, but the ones who wrote the official plans or the secondary plans don't even really know what can be done with it. And so what your job is to take. I remember I used to print these out and I would read them on the toilet. Like they would be sitting beside my toilet. The official or the secondary plan documents. And I would read them with a highlighter, and I had read every single. I was probably the only person who read them, other than the planners who wrote them, right? Really, right. And I would know, and I had calculations for every single property within the secondary plan, how many units could be built on it, what density could be built on it. Nobody else had that, right? Maybe some developers acquisition teams had that, but when you're looking at properties this small, the acquisition team or most developers that are buying properties that small don't even have acquisition teams. Right. So I was kind of like coming in as that department for them by having all of this information. So to answer your question, could the average person do it? Absolutely. Like it's literally, this is the workflow. Google secondary plan for your town. Read the secondary plan. Pull up every property on Geo Warehouse and get the lot size and then run a calculation based on what the lot coverage ratio is in the secondary plan, how many units per net residential hectare or acre, based on that lot size, and floor space index, so FSI, so the total square footage that you can build. So if it's like 3.0 FSI is take the size of the lot, multiply it by 3, that's how many square feet you can build on that lot.
Interesting.
That's like that I made a business out of that for several years.
Right.
So yeah, that it's not rocket science. It's just like, and that what I just described probably to build a full database would take you like 2 days.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because after our AREA panel together, I was already working on this. I've always just kind of naturally done this just based on my background, I guess. But I was on this big, huge thing about not sending auto emails. That's just the start of becoming an advisory realtor.
Right.
It's like, just stop sending the auto emails.
Right.
And even if you've got a client with the most basic residential needs, is that, look, you find their why, you break it down by neighborhood, school zones, yada yada, transit, and you help build them that file. And I was of the strong belief that half my team members, when they say a client ghosted me, I said, did you do a proper buyer consult? And did you present them in the information? Same way that you're presenting, you're just packaging everything to a developer and saying, hey, this is a good buy. Yeah. Same thing like my investment advisor would be like, hey, this is a really good investment. These are great stocks. This company's taking off. You need to see this. Mm-hmm. Realtors don't do that.
Right.
Majority of them. So as soon as you said that, I'm like, write notes. I'm writing notes, because you said that you actually hire somebody to help you gather information.
Yeah.
And right now, I could easily have my admin do something like that, but we got a team of realtors that I just said after that after that panel, I just said, go out there, take your 5 top clients right now. If they haven't been out and put offers in anything, you need to start building their file, as I was calling it, so that they could essentially package those perfect deals to the client.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier to hunt with a rifle than a shotgun, right?
Yeah.
So, that's like
the spray.
But a lot of it is, I think, like, there wasn't really like mandate identification for the past like little bit. Like, you didn't, probably for the past like 5 years, which is like, I think the life cycle of the average realtor anyways. So most people haven't really needed to like